Hello, thank you everyone. As Ivana told us, my title is there. I work in Jorge Castillo along my supervisor, Marcus White and Dr. Sascha Bohnenberger. We're going to present the topic. We have been all day talking about technology, data, and everything, but today I want to start my conversation talking about squirrels. As all the people know, squirrels is this amazing animal that are able to collect data. They are really amazing collecting data, and they collect data for the coming winter. They are really good at that, but sometimes they don't know what to do with that. They collect, and they don't know. For nature, they have a really good advantage because they have reforestation. And sometimes I think about, sometimes ASC professional behaves as a squirrel. But instead to collect nuts, we collect data. And we collect data, and we don't know what to do with that. Unfortunately, keeping the data in our servers doesn't help reforestation or digital reforestation. And that is the beginning of my research. Basically, what I want to do as an aim is improve the early design decision of the ASC project by providing a data management strategy which optimizes the interaction designer with existing knowledge in a sustainable context. How we want to achieve that? By answering our research question that make reference to how can data circularity enhance the efficiency of early design decisions by active collaboration of meaningful data. Being these three red bold words, the core of my research: data circularity, active collaboration, and meaningful data. So how we wanna reply, or how we wanna give answer to our research? For that, we developed a roadmap in which one we can start to connect our research with a sub-research question as well into the challenges and academic challenge. My goal here is to show that obviously it's a kind of complex topic, but we can map in a guideline to know what we want to achieve and what we want to reach. It's important to know that we are connecting these three topics to reach to what we want to do. But first, I want to talk about data circularity. I think Chris just explained a lot about circular economy, and the data circularities come from the same concept, circular economy, and basically it's an extension of the already established technological and biological cycle, and try to become more this digital cycle, which is recirculate data and information. Work on the same principle of the circular economy: recirculate, regenerate, and dispose, but in a level of knowledge and in a level of knowledge. So in our research, data circularity will work like an intersection between data management and data application, in which one this intersection with our data circularity, we want to concentrate to focus to extract meaningful data. This meaningful data will work in a different layers in our data circularity concept that we make reference to collaboration. We want the data to be shared, or we want to hold the data, as well as a purpose of we want to get with the data, as well we design some strategies that can be named like a reuse, relearn, repurpose, reduce, and dispose. And finally, which type of data are we want to work. That is important to know, but the second part is important to know is where we want to apply. We want to apply in the design decision. For that reason, we develop an anatomy in which one we want to analyze design decision in different lenses in order to answer the question when, what, who, how. In order to answer this question, we develop the lenses that making reference to early stages. We're talking about when. This is when our project will focus. In regard of what is obviously, we are making decision of what? Technical decision, design decision, sustainable decision. Also, meaningful data as a core element that will be involved. And who, when we're talking about decision, we are talking about different parties involved. So we need to understand in our case, as an architect and engineer, how they work the decision, as well, which level of automation we want to give to the machine, which level of automation we want to are comfortable to deliver to the human and also to machine. And lastly, data visualization. Understanding data as a method of communication, as a common language between different parties in order to achieve the same goal. So how that can look? Actually, we were working in our application. For that, we developed a scheme that's called Petri dish. Basically, we want to try to do is connecting this data circularity strategies and make little tests of everyone in order to isolate, control, and speculate all the strategies in order to get a verification of our application knowledge to finally jump into a validation stage that we'll be working along with our amazing industry partnership in Arcomine. So I want to show three of the Petri dish that have been working for the moment. It's still in development. The first Petri dish that we developed is in regard of affordable housing, making reference to Melbourne. As we know, we have a lot of old buildings like in the 50s that are thinking to be what is better, demolishing or retrofit. So basically for that, the question comes from here. We want to analyze post-occupancy evaluation, energy performance, and view quality, and try to understand if we can improve. All of this is based on existing data that we can collect, like a public data for the moment, and we can collect. So basically what we did, we start to analyze different type of data and understand data visualization as a method of communication. For that, what is our expected outcome of this specific Petri dish is understand data availability, understand as well type of architectural data that we can find in order to get decision. Also differences between qualitative and quantitative data. As I told you before, data visualization as a method of communication and connecting ideas from different parties. And at the end, the complexity of the diversity of data. Our second Petri dish was working in the hackathon back in Feb this year. That was working along Bollinger and Graham and Grimshaw that make building compatibility indicator. In that specific Petri dish, concept that sometimes we have a lot of information data in the buildings and we want to compare building with building, but because all the buildings are different, at the end we ended up comparing apples and pears. So for that specific Petri dish and also hackathon, we develop same metrics that can help us to compare building to building, and in early design decision can help us to get a map and network mapping that can give an idea of which are our buildings as a reference that can help us to make decisions, taking in consideration that really something working in a really good condition for that specific scenario. As well, our expected outcome will be data availability, data differences of perspective, also quantitative data, because we work, for example, for that specific one in regard of structural analysis. Also, the concept of meaningful data, knowledge between architectural engineering, and data between different fields. The last Petri dish that we have working for the moment is in regard of AI diffusion models. Basically, to understand if already images created, we can extract some knowledge out of that. The same, we develop our strategies, which is basically compare the difference between public access data of images in that case and company images, and see if there are any kind of difference between that. Also see if this kind of image generation can be involved into the design decision. And finally, we can improve that. For that, what we do, we took like some images from specific projects, added to a 3D model and also with a prompt, and start to see if we can get some ideas of what this kind of evolution or what kind of connection of the knowledge embedded into the image we can extract from a specific one. As well, we can start to analyze, for example, this building from Grimshaw. We have like a kind of historical analysis in the same way to see if from for two buildings of different times, we can start to get some ideas of what happened in the middle and get some knowledge based on that. So basically, that is part of our research. So what is the future of my research? The future of what I want to do? Basically, will be divided in the stages of data acquisition. Basically, now we are working in the ethics application. So something which is really important and vital as a part of my research, understand what is meaningful data. Meaningful data is different from architects and engineers for early design decisions. So in that case, I will be working along with all my partnerships to understand that. Also understand where the data is, like a project squirrel, like all these kind of nodes where the data is there in our server. Also, diffusion generation models, understanding, for example, for that specific data, which is images, we are able to extract some knowledge. And also industry partnership, which is data communication, like I try to understand different fields and different connection within architecture and engineering. Obviously, we are already preparing everything. So probably in the future months, future week, we have some partnership engagement. Hopefully you can join. And just to finalize everything, coming back to the squirrel, don't get nuts collecting nuts. You just learn to get the best out of the nut. Thank you.
Any questions from the floor about squirrels, nuts, or anything, research related?
Great for oak trees,
Sorry.
They put it there, and then the ones they don't pick up and eat in the winter become those amazing oak trees.
Exactly, yes. And unfortunately, the data we can collect.
So, oak trees. They actually have like.
Thanks for that was a great way to start a presentation. I always love a bit of a cute squirrel, especially one that can use an iPad. That's pretty impressive. I thought you did a really good job there of weaving all of your questions together, because you've got quite a complex overall question that you have broken down into sub questions, and I liked the way you were able to graphically explain that. I don't think it's fully there yet, because I had a little bit of trouble tracing exactly how your sub questions kind of build on each other, but I think it's definitely a good way of doing it. And my question would be then, each of these questions seems to be addressed in a experiment. Question to you is, do you expect one experiment to be able to answer each one of these sub questions?
No, basically, as you notice here, at the bottom, basically it's highlighted our main research question with the sub-research question that can make reference to that. The idea of the Petri dishes is try to test a small element at all this big, and at the end, working along with one big project that we can combine one or multiple Petri dishes that will give answer to that, like a pieces of information around what we are working as a full complaint of data circularity or our research question.
Okay, presentation 14 of the day. I was not ready for these metaphors, but I really enjoyed it. It was great. Speaking very practically, and thinking back to Keon's presentation earlier in the day, data and security and like industry engagement and things like that. I think I can see a huge amount of potential benefit from this, but I am concerned that you're going to come up against the same issues. Like if you do want to look into data and how that can be reused and recycled and things like that. Yes, with the image generation stuff, that can be fed off like publicly available data, but the real benefit is going to be for what we've got in-house, whether it's our web models and things like that, which there's a big question mark over who owns that and can it be used and things like that. So I think as you kind of go through your own research questions and what you want to do in terms of case studies and things like that, I think we just need to carefully navigate like how to best do that in a meaningful way, because I don't want to belittle it, but the image generation stuff is fairly superficial compared to actually the real potential of what you're talking about here. And so I think we as in industry partners plus you need to figure out how we can do that. It's just an observation, but something we need to be aware of.
I totally understand that. For that reason, in the concept of data circularity, that's kind of breaking down at the beginning of which data companies are able to share with data a company able to like a whole. Obviously, this kind of connection of sharing and whole also makes reference to improve the sector as a holistic element and also be competitive as a company. This kind of, obviously, I understand there's some kind of conversation that we need to go through in the moment that we enter to request or understand data that we needed to do a process. But it's kind of, I think, part of this conversation or interviews about meaningful data, everything can be lead to understand which of these full data that we have are really meaningful, really important, and we can focus in that specific one, obviously concerning about security and aspects. But it's like a kind of further conversation that I really understand, because we have had a lot of conversation with my supervisor, Sascha, and also with some like a locals or a coffee break that we have some of the partnership as well, that they have bring the same concern about data.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Hey, so you say nut, but nut's a really broad term, right?
Yes, I know.
Can you give us an example of how we can use nuts like in that circular system? Just a really simple example, just so I can get my. Oh, sorry.
For example, images.
Pardon?
For example, the images.
Images?
Yes, this is kind of element which is related with the nuts. I'm collecting a lot of images in the process of design. I'm collecting.
Right.
How I can get these images to extract knowledge from out of this kind of process of creating images is part of understanding what we have. Obviously, for example, nowadays this is a hype in this kind of nano things or creating images, because they have a kind of differences between public access or not
Yeah.
like a training. But yeah, for example, images will be an example of.
But like a question, how do we use images as meaningful data,
Mhm.
especially images from through a circular system? What makes an image meaningful at a like an early design stage process? What
No, actually, that is the main point of our research.
Yeah,
Understand the
okay,
concept of
sure.
meaningful data, and for that, actually it's a kind of consensus that in my ethics or interview with a lot of people along the process,
Yeah.
we can define that, because to be honest, it's a really hard term to define, and this is multiple set of data along the process.
Yeah.
So let's try to get an idea of all of this data that we created. What is the pieces of information that are vital or are meaningful
Yeah.
for the early stage?
'Cause
It's something that I don't know now. It's something that maybe we can start to build up in our conversation to try to understand out of all the data what is important.
Yeah, because if anything, I've attempted to try and feed people data, and it's quite difficult, but it's very easy to feed people images. But the question that you're looking at is what makes an image meaningful.
Exactly.
It would be very interesting. I'm looking forward to your answer.
Me too.
Sorry, me again. So my PhD was on data, and by the end of it, I was sick of the term. Even when I hear it, it's like, yeah, I should have said that. It did send me nuts. Yeah. But what I had to do was because I was saying the word so much, and people were saying, "What do you mean? What were you talking about?" I had to produce a taxonomy, and that was very different. The thing I was talking about was historical uses of data. And so you need to identify different types, because they're not all the same. So in your case, images provide a certain type of data. There's visual meaning, but there's also pixel numbers and color ratios, hue saturation values. So you really need to kind of define this. So perhaps a taxonomy of data types, just to help you define it and avoid these questions in the future, really.
No, and actually, for example, important part of that is in this kind of lenses that we analyze in design decision. For example, images for architects could be meaningful, but for engineer, doesn't care. They are maybe more focused in numbers or dimensions, something more approach to them.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of find this kind of differences, and how tell you earlier, try to see if we can transform this data as a language, common language, not like engineers speaking Chinese, architects speaking Spanish. Try to be this kind of data as a communication and level that we can come all together to the same idea to make decision with the same.
Yeah, thank you for a really interesting presentation, and really, really important, valuable topic. I've sort of just been looking at this question that you've put up, and I just wonder. I really like that in your presentation you started with something really simple, that concept of this, like the squirrel, right? And this simple example to explain something that's really complicated. So I really like that. I think it was received really well, and I wonder if I may sort of give this as a feedback also going forward. I don't know. I feel like that question is not quite as simple yet as your example, or it could be maybe simpler. I actually feel, as I was looking at the question, I felt like I was in a circular world, because there was the data, it starts with data and ends with data. So it's sort of, anyway, so I'm just wondering whether that question is possibly two questions, or could be simplified a bit. And basically making sense out of something that's really complex. I'm sure you've worked really hard on that, but just sort of as I do feel like there could be another iteration of that to make it as simple as a concept as that squirrel you presented. Just wondering.
Okay, no, I think it's valuable. Obviously, our research is not ended here. It's still in process, so still we are refining things. Try to understand our map, our roadmap to help us to get ideas and maybe in the context of this time that we have for our research, which is 3 years, maybe we feel that maybe we can chop it up and maybe more precise in certain elements. For the moment, my research has given me to that specific research, but it's still open to opportunities and to ways to change and improve what we are
Not
doing.
trying to change the research.
No,
More,
like
I
a-
feel like
Mhm.
there's something about meaningful data. Data should be, yeah, I just, something about it. Okay, anyway, we can try it again.
Okay, I really appreciate.
A lot of concepts in one sentence.
In one sentence, and they sort of bite each other like a tape, like, yeah. So I wonder, I mean, I remember when I was doing my PhD, my supervisor, when I had the same word twice in a sentence, he'd put a tick and say, okay, can you fix that? You need to remove one. And anyway, so just maybe something to look at. I know they're both important to you, so I'm not saying, you know, that it should be removed, but I wonder if there's another way to articulate that to just a question, and that, yeah, meant as a constructive feedback. I'm not saying you should change your research. I'm just saying maybe there's another way to put that across. You know.
Okay, I will check with my supervisor.
Thanks, Jorge. It was very engaging presentation, specifically with your graphic skills. I don't know if it was only me or everyone's trying to track these lines and finding the sub-research questions, connecting them with industry challenges and academic challenges, and finally found that there is no blue color legend on your question. So I kind of get lost in the middle. So just suggestion, maybe you can add where is the management connected to knowledge, data, silos, and data circularity, because the blue color is not in your main question.
Yes.
But yeah, well done. I'll
Oh,
just
yeah.
pass it to me.
No, I totally understand. Just for the context, blue it means technology and data.
Nice. It's elaborating more on what David also mentioned. I tried to unpack your research question, and I find active collaboration probably is the one that I will take it out and put it as secondary, or I don't know whether it is still central to your question, or is it something that make the data meaningful because it activates the collaboration, or it's a bit hard for me to unpack so many of those keywords. And are you basically, or can we read it in a way that the sub questions can be not clustered together rather than having so many sub questions? They turn to criteria, turn to keywords rather than setting sub question, and build up a longer question for the sub question and shorter question for the main question. It's more of really trying to, but by the way, you presented your progress very well in terms of saying the story of what you're up to and what's the next step. That was really wonderful as a second year student, to reporting on what you have done so far. So we have that clarity to discuss about what are the gaps and how to help you out.
Thank you so much.
Seems to me that just defining meaningful data is
It
enough
is.
for a PhD in itself, let alone all the other things. And whether something like data circularity and design decision making can be like the reasons for defining meaningful data. Do you know?
The point is, for example, when I was trying to tackle the topic, meaningful data, when I go to the decision with the, let me go here, with the decision, basically, the meaningful data depend also of which stage of the project am I. For example, decision is different when I'm on in early stages, or when I'm in documentation, is totally different, the set of meaningful data, and that is to a specific scenario under the same project. So for that reason, it's kind of hard to divide it. For that reason, all these kind of lenses start to appear to get a cohesive idea of where we are. I know it's sometimes kind of massive and a lot of things happening around. Obviously, maybe with the time, with my help with my supervisor, we can start to get it more like a kind of narrow down a little bit, because it's still ongoing, a lot of things happening. But the point is, all the time I feel that everything is like a link in certain way. If I cut this kind of link, lost something in the process and lost possibility that can happen there.
Sometimes you got to cut those links.
I know.
Okay, we've got 5 more minutes if anybody else has a.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. By the way, I missed your presentation. I just got the last little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, but doing something similar around, circularity,
Mhm.
but in sustainable, sustainable circularity. I just wanted to know if you've had a chance to look at the European Union's is it the eco design for sustainable products? Are you doing this with the AEC industry? Yes. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, look at the European Union's eco design for sustainable products regulation, and they've started something like this, and you might want to have a look at that,
Okay,
which will help you shape, your research.
I really appreciate. Maybe I will contact later to you can pass me the information just to check it. Double check.
While I'm up here, any more questions from the seating?
No,
Yep.
someone down
Great.
there.
No?
Chris wants to say something.
Oh, Chris again.
Just trying to get you up and down.
You actually want to-
No, really, just joking. No one's there.
Okay, well, there are no more questions. No, thank you, Jorge, for an animated presentation.